Mario Kart. No matter how old or young you are, if you're on YouTube, you've at least heard of it. But what if I told you the greatest Mario Kart game of all time was not the newest entry, or even the oldest entry, like some kind of hipster? No, trust me, that game sucks. Here's a chart I made to explain a theory that I have about video game sequels. You see, the more sequels a game gets, the better the core mechanics and identity are honed, but at some point, your game hits this peak where the core audience loves it, but casuals have a hard time entering the series because of that. To prove this theory, I'm gonna write down some franchises on this, and you'll probably be able to understand what I mean just by your own experiences.
Here we go!
Mario Kart DS is like the DS game. It's a true showcase of what this lethal weapon can do. I'm gonna take a short detour and go over some Mario Kart history before we talk about Mario Kart DS, because I feel like there's some ground that needs to be covered. Super Mario Kart was the first game in the series, and pulled off some pretty convincing 3D for the time, but it was really tough to control, and it really didn't have any of the things that make up Mario Kart to this day. In an odd way, it's kinda like playing a Mario Kart bootleg. Next in the series would be Mario Kart 64, and wow, look, there's 3Ds! 3 of them! Mario Kart 64 is great, but it's a little rough around the edges. I can't explain exactly what I mean, but all the controls are a tad sluggish, and the game just has this buggy feeling. Play it for like 20 minutes someday, and you'll get what I mean. If I were to use another weird analogy for this, it's kinda like playing a Mario Kart fan game. All the things are there, but none of them feel right. It's like there's some paranormal force between you and your controller, and the console has to check all your inputs before the N64 reads them or something. So where do we go from here? Mario Kart Super Circuit, of course. This game is an odd mix between Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64. It's got one less D, but plays fairly well. There's one nice thing I can say about this game, it's that the tracks are pretty fun, and I really like the strong theming that this game had. But the negative is, you've probably never heard of this game, because it's very unpopular. Alright, now for my favorite Mario Kart game, but this one's definitely just nostalgia, which is why this video is about Mario Kart DS. Here's Mario Kart Double Dash, a lovely game. This was at a time where Mario was seeing his 4th rebranding. If you're keeping tabs, we just went from this to this. There's eyes now. Everything has eyes now. This game introduced double item boxes and double drivers. Yeah, Double Dash. Anyways, infinitely more important, and kind of the reason why I started this history lesson, is that this game introduced snaking. Snaking is a term I'll be light on verbally, because I think it's better to just show you what snaking is. So, that leaves us with Mario Kart DS. Let's just get straight into the peak. I'd like to prove my point that this is the best Mario Kart game with a couple of things that Mario Kart is well loved for, and how well Mario Kart DS lives up to these standards. So first, let's start with controls. Every good Mario Kart game has good control. This should be a given. I mean, Mario Kart isn't a story-based game, it's an arcade racer for crying out loud. If this game should be anything, it should be fun, and fun it is. So of course, you drive and steer, we all know that, but you can also jump, and the drifting is different in this game, and that's what's really fun about this game in particular. Everyone who's ever played a racing game or has been in the car of a reckless friend knows that drifting is fun already, but any pro racer knows that no matter how cool drifting looks, unless you're racing downhill with specific circumstances like vehicle class and weight distribution, drifting is always going to be slower than a proper racing line. Sorry if I hurt any Initial D fans out there, I had to overcome this too. But what if Nintendo just said fuck it? Mario would never say that. Mario Kart DS, much like the Mario Karts of old, rewards you with a tiny boost if you countersteer. This mechanic actually started in Mario Kart 64, if you can believe it. Carried over to Double Dash with the introduction of snaking. It was completely gone in Mario Kart Super Circuit. And then it made its return in Mario Kart DS with a new kind of way to drift. You see, in Mario Kart Double Dash, when you press the drift button, I guess is what I should call it, I don't know, the person in the back of the cart just kinda I don't know what that is, but that's what they do. See, in Mario Kart DS, it makes a little more sense. Instead, they hop into the turn. So you can consider the drift button now the hop button, which allows you to hop over things too. It can also help you in a pinch if you end up finding yourself in grass, and I find myself in grass pretty often.
Smoke weed every day.
Yeah, make sure that the Snoop Dogg bit happens, because that's very important for this video. Basically, the idea is you hop into a corner, and you hold the jump button as you steer into the turn. Once in the drifting state, the player is now given visual and auditory feedback. Once realizing, your monkey brain then decides, I will now waggle the D-pad to adjust myself. Then you're shown sparks that are blue, and your monkey receptors go ooh ooh ah ah. And then you waggle the D-pad again, and then orange sparks. Waggling it again does nothing, so your ape fingers release from the jump button, and it graces you. The micro boost. This is where the first legendary mechanic seats itself, snaking. Once you drift boost, you can immediately start another one, allowing you to slither around the track kinda like a snake. Once you drift boost, you can immediately start another one, allowing you to slither around the track kinda like a snake. On top of that, hopping actually plays a much larger role in this game than it ever has. There are actually things for you to hop over. This game also has air control, leading the player to have to make some choices after being launched. If you want to learn more about the legendary and advanced techniques in this game, and breathe some new life into your DS or emulator of choice, I highly recommend PeakAlex04's video, I hope I'm saying that name right, How to Get Good at Mario Kart DS, from Snail to Snake. I'll be sure to link this in the description below because it's such a fantastic video covering basically everything that you need to know about the deep mechanics of this game. This is the melee of Mario Kart. Just when you think you've learned all the game's quirks, in reality, you've barely scratched the surface. If you're a speedrunner looking for a new game, give this one a try. It can get very addicting. Now I'm gonna spend some time talking about something that's a little controversial. I hate these. Big rosters usually sound cool to casual fans because people like having choice. I think a lot of people also like the idea of crossover casts. I mean, it's the reason why Smash Ultimate and Fortnite are so popular. I prefer this a lot more. I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I used Tier List Maker to aid me in explaining this. There's just way too much bloat in this roster. The simplicity is best described with pattern recognition. All the big guys are heavy, all the medium guys are medium, and all the small guys are light. Simple concept. But when you have such a large cast of diverse characters, at a glance, these differences aren't very obvious. On top of that, as the player, you know that if a big yellow guy is coming towards you, to drive away from them, because it's probably gonna hurt you. I'll also make a short note that even though you can't play as any color of Yoshi in the rainbow, you can still make a custom emblem. This was my and many others' first introduction to pixel art. You want to have your cart be man-made horror? Sure thing. Or you can just draw a pony or a smiley face. I don't know, be normal. That leads me to tracks. Oh my coconut mall, this game has tracks. People tend to shit on this game for a lack of good tracks, but I don't really get it. Let's start with Mushroom Cup. You got Figure 8 Circuit. Pretty mid, but I mean, it's a good track to get used to the controls. I feel like every first track in a Mario Kart game should at least do that. Yoshi Falls, a very unique oval track with a risky fast lane. This also introduces to the player that there are environmental hazards. Cheap Cheap Beach, a relaxing seaside track with some fun alternate paths and jumps. And of course, Luigi's Mansion, a very fun track that I feel like a lot of people forget about. There are these big gaps of mud causing the player to have to make important decisions quickly in order to come out on top. And I think that's great. And that's just all in the first cup. And we already have quite a solid lineup. And next, we have the Flower Cup, starting with Desert Hills. It's pretty mid, but I mean, I find it more fun than Dry Desert, so at least there's that. And then there's the fan favorite, Delfino Square, with its delightful piantas, autumn leaves, and the sweet bridge that's always changing its height as you race. Tight alleys make this track a ton of fun, reminding me of urban rally tracks. But trust me, it gets better. Waluigi Pinball. You know it, I know it, we all know it. Such a fantastic idea for a track. It was executed perfectly. This track encapsulates everything that I love about Mario Kart DS's track design, honestly. It's a solid track with lots of technical turns and a big long stretch with obstacles right before the finish line, with a killer song that you've been listening to. I might get a copyright strike for this, but I'm gonna risk it because I just need to prove this point. I need to get this off my chest. I've never been able to unhear this since I've heard it. When you go through the cannon in Waluigi Pinball, it makes this noise. To me, it has always sounded like this bit from Fly Like an Eagle, and I've never been able to listen to Fly Like an Eagle without thinking about Waluigi Pinball. This track really separates itself from the bunch. It's very unique. So how do we end this cup? Initial D, I guess. Yeah, you heard that right. As a kid, I always wrote off Shroom Ridge, but as an adult, I'm really happy that this track even exists in the first place. Nintendo made a Toge track in a Mario Kart game. I'm gonna say that again. Nintendo made a Toge track in a Mario Kart game. Both gameplay-wise and aesthetically, I love this track. And it's such a joy to drift around it and snake. It's perfect. Oh my dearly beloved Shroom Ridge, how could I doubt you as a child? Alright, so how are we gonna top that in the Star Cup? Starting strong with DK Pass, of course. This is another case where as a kid I didn't really enjoy it, but now as an adult, realizing that this is just a snow rally track in disguise, it's so much more fun to me. Your kart is a little slidey, but the track is actually built around this concept instead of against it, like in Super Mario Kart. I hate this game. And then, right after, there's Tick-Tock Clock. This track is extremely technical, and it's very similar to Waluigi Pinball in both concept and design. And it's fantastic. There's the clock hands moving around the track, there's the gears that you have to kind of like swerve around, and then of course the gears at the end of the track. Mwah, chef's kiss. And of course, again, there's a great song paired with it. You'll see yourself making a lot of quick choices, and that's what really defines this track. Once you get used to how it functions, you can start getting some really good lap times too. Next up is Mario Circuit. And honestly, this is my favorite Mario circuit. I think most Mario circuits are kind of mid, because there isn't a lot going on in them. And there's often way too much dead space. But this track is full, and it uses elements from other games, like Mario Kart 64 with this pipe over here, and of course, Peach's Castle, as seen on the GameCube version of this track. And there's a lot of nice twists and turns. Pretty standard for a Mario Kart track, but at least it's here. It's a great short and sweet track, and it's nothing compared to Piranha Plant Slide, but in name, in terms of Mario circuits, I think it's my favorite. Then to top it all off, we have one of the greatest tracks in this game, Airship Fortress. What an amazing technical track. This track is incredible. One of my biggest gripes as a kid is that there weren't enough tracks based off of actual Mario locations in Mario Kart. So imagine how much fun I had as a kid dodging bullet bills and driving over rocky wrenches. There's also this cannon at the end that shoots you to this long spiraling tower. It all feels like a real Mario level, just perfectly transformed into a track. Well done, Nintendo. I really want more of this. And now for the last cup. The Special Cup. We have Wario Stadium, a pretty mid-track to me, but it's essentially a mud rally circuit. It has some fire bars, and it's kind of like Wario Stadium from Mario Kart 64, just a lot better and with some minor elements from Waluigi Stadium on the GameCube. It's a blend similar to the one that we saw with Mario Circuit, and I definitely like it. It might be my least favorite track in all of these cups so far, but it's still really good. It's at least fun. I mean, look, the Muddy Boost section is back. If you thought Muddy Boost sections started with a Toad Factory, you're wrong. It started here. Next up, we got Peach Gardens, a very technical maze-like track. And as the name implies, this is a garden track behind Peach's castle. Pretty cool, huh? It's just such a fun theme. It's perfectly executed. You gotta play this game of Pac-Man around these chomp chops in the hedges. And there's this cool Mario Bush sculpture too. It reminds me of the snow sculpture from Mario Kart 64. And next up, we got Bowser Castle, a staple of the series. By the way, another thing I need to get off my chest, people always call this track Bowser's Castle. This has always been Bowser Castle. They aren't implying that this is Bowser's Castle, this is just a Bowser-themed castle. Weird tangent, but I've been needing to get this off my chest for so long, oh my god. Anyways, yet again, it is another technical track, which I think is pretty appropriate for the final cup. There are the thwomps, lava pits, burners, spiky trees and mountains in the background, everything you'd expect from a Bowser Castle, except these sections. A spinning roulette with a risky shortcut, and a spiraling tower without a wall on the inside requiring the player to know how to drift and how to counter steer. And of course, the legendary cylinder. No, not that cylinder. Yeah, that cylinder. This is the ultimate test of the player's ability to steer precisely without drifting, and friendship. This is the most disgusting punishment ever. Factor in the fact that heavier racers will just completely ruin your day with one love tap. This section is so devious, Nintendo would never cook something this wonderful these days. Anyways, you know what time it is. It's time for Rainbow Road. Okay, chat, I'm gonna be real with you all. Worst Rainbow Road ever. It's fine, but it's just nothing to look at. Super Mario Kart had these cool thwomps. Mario Kart 64 had the gold chain chomps, and of course these unforgettable neon character portraits. Mario Kart Super Circuit has Paper Mario 64's Bowser's Castle, and Double Dash has the gorgeous view of Mushroom City from down below, and the rainbow sculptures that are pretty cool in my opinion. This track just has Rainbow Road, I guess. It's really hard to defend this track of all the other ones in this game because it's just so mid. Well, that's it for tracks. Is what I'd say if this wasn't the first Mario Kart game to have retro stages. That's right. If you play Mario Kart, you're probably familiar with these. Nintendo remixes old tracks for the mechanics of new games. But this was the first instance of it, and they did a pretty good job. But I gotta say, the full remixes with the newer Mario Kart games that started with Mario Kart 7 are a lot better in my opinion. Mario Kart DS and Mario Kart Wii have retro stages that are more like remasters of these tracks. Thus, the Super Nintendo tracks look like this. So, unfortunately, this is Super Nintendo Mario Circuit, the first track of the Shell Cup. Well, it's certainly Mario Circuit. Thematically and design-wise, I really don't have much to say about the Super Nintendo tracks, but they're here, so that's cool, I guess. After that, at least, we have Nintendo 64 Moo Moo Farm. I've never personally been a fan of this track, but god, Nintendo sure seems to like it a lot. Whatever. Next up is GBA Peach Circuit. I mean, the music is nice. I'm not gonna lie, this first cup really doesn't pick up until GameCube Nintendo Luigi Circuit. Look kids, at the time to see a GameCube track in your palms was so freaking cool. Not just a great track to be in the first cup, but a great track overall. You got this mid-section where you see the trailers of the race on the second and third laps, and then this chain chomp that will try to fish you out of the track, and this really fun half bowl with speed boosters, making this game where you have to kind of try to drift on the innermost parts of the bowl for the maximum speed advantage. It's a great end to this cup, what can I say? The Banana Cup starts with Super Nintendo Donut Plains 1. It's a decent track, it has a lot of mushroom shortcuts, and it's overall an inoffensive track. But next up is Nintendo 64 Frapp Snowland, a cute little track with a cute theme, a cute Mario snow sculpture, and a scary liminal area that always creeps up on me. It's a fine track, I must say so myself. GBA Bowser Castle is not. I'm not a fan of this one. It's a technical track, but not a fun one. It's all 90-degree turns and speed jumps. They all look deceiving sometimes, and they have the ability to kill you because of the lava. It's just a kind of annoying track. Next up, however, is GameCube Nintendo Baby Park. Who doesn't love Baby Park? A fun little 5-lap NASCAR-style circuit. That's right, 5 laps. If you're used to this track being 7 laps, that changes in Mario Kart DS and Mario Kart DS only. What makes this track fun is that since it's so small, you'll be overlapping people constantly, and there's this constant rush of fear that a stray green shell or red shell could get the jump on you at any moment. This track is like the gulags of Mario Kart, and I love it. And with that, it's Leaf Cup time. Fuck this track. Pretend it doesn't exist. Anyways, our second track is Nintendo 64 Choco Mountain. It's a fun dirt rally track with a cool fog effect. Much like all the other Mario Kart 64 tracks, the lack of enemies makes this track pretty liminal, and the fog definitely doesn't help, but there's definitely an unsettling mood that this track has that seems intentional. And I can jive with it. This creepy ass face in the mountain definitely says it all. Next up is GBA Luigi Circuit. This is a very faithful recreation of this technical track that appears to be a weather station operated by Luigi? I love the concept of this track, but it kind of bums me out that this is the only time that Nintendo has really touched it. I really wish that Nintendo would do more with this idea in the future. I think that a track with changing weather conditions each lap would be such a fun idea. But besides the random seasons in Animal Crossing, Nintendo really hasn't done this. Anyways, we end this cup on a great note. GameCube Nintendo Mushroom Bridge. Mushroom Bridge is a childhood favorite of mine, so I might be a little biased, but who doesn't love a good street race? The theme song is also pretty groovy. One thing I'm not too fond of is that they took away a lot of the shortcuts in this track. It makes sense that the pipe is gone because there'd be no incentive since Mario Kart DS doesn't have double item boxes, but why the bridge? You can still drive up it, so it's just weird that they decided to remove the speed boosts. Either way, the backyard path is still here, so that's nice. Finally, the last cup of the game, the Lightning Cup. Starting off kinda mid with Super Nintendo Choco Island 2. What kind of name is that? Can you tell I really don't like the Super Nintendo stages? Can you tell I really don't like Super Mario Kart? I can firmly say that I am glad that Nintendo has remixed some of these tracks, but I don't think anyone would miss them if Nintendo never touched them again. Look, it's seriously nothing personal, but do we really have to bring these tracks back? Do they really add more play value to the game? Is anyone really nostalgic of Choco Island 2? Either way, next up is Nintendo 64 Banshee Boardwalk. It's another technical track with some cool bats and ghosts. I will say the long straights do make this track kind of a snooze fest on 50cc, but it's pretty fun at higher speeds. After that is GBA Sky Garden, a fun track that pays homage to the secret zones in Super Mario Bros. 3. It's a fun little track that's kind of Rainbow Road-like. The game comes to a close with GameCube Nintendo Yoshi Circuit, a fantastic island toge that's shaped like a freaking Yoshi. What's there not to love? With how windy this track is because of Yoshi's curves, you're constantly drifting through it. There's not a second that you're driving straight in this track, and I love that. There's also this really cool mushroom shortcut that has you jump over the water and under a rock form. It's like a cool stunt. I don't know, I love this track. It's so fun. It's a great way to end this game. But what if you wanted to keep playing? Well, that's great, because there's a mission mode. This mode is another single-player experience in the form of a campaign. You end up doing trial runs, collectathons, arenas, and even one-on-one races. And the best of all, bosses. There's Big Bully, iRock, Goom Boss, King Boo, King Bob-omb, Chief Chili, and Wiggler. If that roster sounds familiar, it's probably because they are. They're basically all the bosses that you'd fight in Super Mario 64 DS, minus Bowser. Which reminds me, this cartridge probably would have never left my DS if it had the mini-games from Super Mario 64 DS and New Super Mario Bros. Honestly, thinking about it now, it's still weird to me that they never found their way onto this cart. Speaking of carts, carts! Mario Kart didn't allow you to choose carts until Mario Kart Double Dash, so selecting a kart was still fairly new to the series, and here, it's done very well. As characters define weight class, carts define a multitude of other things. These affect speed, acceleration, vehicle weight, handling, drift, and time trial item amount. Nintendo really should have just hidden this until you select a cart in the time trials and just have 1 to 3 mushroom icons or something, because the word items here misled so many people to believe that it actually affected your item chance, but whatever. Each character can use the standard cart, and as the name implies, it's a very safe choice for new players. But each character has their own carts, and I just want to talk about the couple that I love a lot. Of course, first here is the B-Dasher, modeled after the 1967 Honda RA300, a classic Formula car. Peach's Royale is modeled after a 1933 Bugatti Type 55. Wario's Brute is based off of the 1968 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. Dry Bones literally has a Fisher M10 tank. Who the fuck let him have that? Donkey Kong is a Jeep owner, I guess. Fitting for the character. Daisy's Flower Power is even modeled after a 1954 Triumph TR2. I didn't even know this car existed until I did research for this video. Clearly, Nintendo wasn't afraid this time around to have more road-style cars in this game. Among F1, there's a large selection of real-world vehicles, and I kinda wish Nintendo would do more of that. I mean, they did do the Mercedes collaboration in Mario Kart 8, but does anyone even use those cars? But other than real-world vehicles, they also made a lot of other karts too, like the Light Dancer, Light Tripper, Shooting Star, Four-Wheel Cradle, and the Streamliner. There's also some pretty wacky karts in this game too, like the Tyrant, which appears to be Bowser's hand, Rambi Rider, which is, well, you guessed it, a Rambi, Banisher, which is just this sick Dry Bones car that looks like something Hot Wheels would make, Mushmallow, a mushroom with 4 wheels and a very funny name, Egg 1, yeah, it's an egg. Funny enough, the egg cart is the one that people usually use when they start speedrunning, and when they break from that shell, they use the riskier Rob BLS, which is this cool base stand for Rob that's been converted into a cart. It's kind of like an analogy of breaking from that shell and becoming a machine. Rob also has this weird pair of legs. Anyways, Bowser has this other cart too that's basically a clown car turned into a plane, and Luigi has the Poltergust from Luigi's Mansion as a car. Pretty cool karts. Technically, Mario Kart DS was one of the first games to have bikes too. Well, a bike. Waluigi's, of course. It's more like a trike, but I mean, if I've ever been taught anything from my midlife elders, trikes are the new bikes. Now, next I'd talk about battle mode, but I feel like showing you footage of me playing with CPUs would be kinda lame. Sadly, Mario Kart DS Online Play doesn't support battle mode either. And I also couldn't round up 8 of my friends to hassle to get an emulator configured the right way for net play. And though I could go to my local library and hang up posters advertising a DS Download Play meetup in 2025, I totally did not try to do that. So my advice? Just trust me, bro. This was the most fun that I've ever had on a bus in the 2000s, and it's something that I risked getting grounded for when I was in middle school, since my parents didn't like me taking my DS to school. So if that's anything to say about the battle mode, I'd say it says a lot about the battle mode. Though you can't really play battle mode like you could all those days ago, there is a fan-made and fan-run free service that attempts to bring back the online play feature called Wii MMFi, or Wimfi. I've heard people pronounce it many different ways, but Wii MMFi. So give it a try if that sounds like your thing. I want to wrap up this video talking about the legacy this game has that's really been important to me. Nintendo isn't going to make Mario Kart DS 2 anytime soon, so I am so thankful for the Mario Kart DS modding scene. Ermii, VG Resource, Garhugan, Gali Bidoof, Jericom, Jackanapes, Super GameCube, Gel, Redify, and many others have contributed largely to the documentation of this game's code, and creating new tools that are able to change assets in the game, and really made modding possible in the first place. Of course, many of these people are modders themselves and have made some incredible ROM hacks that feel like standalone experiences. One that I'm really excited for is F-Zero DSX. It's an F-Zero game made with the code from Mario Kart DS, with F-Zero mechanics and all. It's being worked on right now by Tiny Fluffy Mess, and her project is so exciting to see because we never got an F-Zero game since the GameCube and GBA. Nitro Revolution is an excellent looking ROM hack by RocoLoco321 and some others, which looks to be a straight up port of Mario Kart Wii to the DS. And I also can't help but shamelessly plug here. Super GameCube started a long-term project called GameCube Grand Prix, which is a ROM hack that basically asks the question, what if Mario Kart Double Dash was on the DS? The answer is looking pretty good so far, and I've been honored to be part of the art team for this ROM hack. Even if my work on this mod is far and few and nothing compared to the other people on the team, when this hack is complete, I'll be absolute sure to make a full coverage video about it, because it's something that I've had a lot of passion for during the years I've been doing art for it, even if it hasn't been a lot. So what are some ROM hacks that you can play? Well, let's start with a simple yet effective one. Mario Kart DS, but with tricks. This code was written by Prelit and implemented on the ramps of every track by YouTuber and ROM hacker Hoik. This hack is a great way to breathe new life into the game, and I found a lot of fun going through and playing it. It almost erased my burnout from recording the playthrough for this video. I honestly might just play this game like this in the future, as it only really adds an extra layer to the gameplay, and I'd be lying if I said this wasn't like my dream Mario Kart playstyle. Tricks and snaking, just so perfect. Next up is Mario Kart DS Deluxe, a hack by Rafa4K that I honestly had a great time playing. It's a ton of tracks from newer Mario Kart games, but on the DS. The magic here comes from finally being able to snake in these tracks, but I gotta be honest about this ROM hack. It's clear that a lot of these tracks were ported by Rafa4K by taking screenshots of textures and perspective correcting them to use as textures for Rafa4K's low poly renditions of these tracks. And billboard sprites are used for objects that are also clearly screenshots of these objects. This is a fine and interesting approach to porting these tracks, but unfortunately, that's the extent of the positives I can give this hack. It's a very unique concept of track porting that isn't common, but besides this, the hack lacks a lot of polish. Without vertex colors and clear optimized textures, the hack ends up looking kinda cheap and simulatory. The tracks also lack a lot of movement. There's a lot of Z-fighting, bad UVs, and a couple of collision issues. In fact, none of these tracks really had a proper map, and it's rare that the CPU racers actually had a proper navigation path, but that isn't to say this hack is bad in any means. These are just areas that I think the hack could improve in. Because so far for me, I can only recommend this hack if you want to go grab a 100% save file and just play the time trials. Next up is Ermii Kart DS, a meme ROM hack of sorts by the developer Ermii. Yoshi Dude 4, Sismbar 15, Tomix, Stomatol, Darklight, Jericom, and Swifty Luma also had a pretty large role in making this hack. Even though it's mostly a meme hack, don't let that deter you from it. Unlike the last, it actually has a lot of polish. In fact, I'd say it has polish in spades. I'm not trying to compare the two ROM hacks, but if anything, this hack shows just how important polish is for a ROM hack, because even with how silly this hack is, it's still a full experience that you can finish. Some standout tracks here are the retro stages. The original tracks have plenty of good layouts, but I could go on and on about how good this hack is. So let's go on to the next one. Niji Kart is a pretty funny Mario Kart DS ROM hack intending to make a total conversion Love Live kart racer by El Hongo. I'm not a big fan of the anime, and I've only watched like 2 episodes, and I don't even remember which season I watched, but this is a pretty fun and unusual experience. My only complaint is that for some reason 100cc's CPU difficulty seems to be way too high. I just kept getting passed over and over again, so I had to only record in 50cc. There are just 5 custom tracks here, but this hack isn't finished yet, And the 5 tracks that are here are so polished that it honestly looks like it could have been a real DS licensed kart racer for Love Live. I especially love how detailed the pixel art is. This hack also has tricks too. All the characters are replaced with, you guessed it, idols from Love Live, and they even have their own custom karts. I definitely recommend checking this out whether or not you're a fan of Love Live, and if you are, this is probably already something that's on your radar. CTGP Nitro is an awesome submission-based community mod made only possible by the incredible Mario Kart DS modding community. This project is managed by Super GameCube, and it's an extremely polished hack. Small details first, I think it's pretty cool that there's an extra page in the racer select screen that seems to be the personas of several modders who have worked on this project. In typical CTGP fashion, the entire original game is still here. The tracks in this hack don't replace them. They're simply their own cups now. All the Nitro cups are a ton of fun too, and all these tracks are almost at an official quality. But what really impressed me was the level of care put into the retro cups. None of these tracks are just decimated map imports. They are all bespoke, recreated tracks from the ground up that typically stay very close to the Mario Kart DS art style. I found it to be a blast to finally snake around in Nintendo 64, Wii, and 3DS tracks because the drifting style has only really been in Mario Kart DS and Double Dash. Even better, there are some Super Nintendo courses that are actually properly remade. This mod is just a joy to play, and I would highly recommend it. If not for all the other mods, definitely try this one out. And of course, proper links to all these mods will be in the video description, so make sure that you check them out. With all those awesome mods out of the way, what's in it for the future of this game? Well, it seems that there's an active Mario Kart DS decompilation project. And although it isn't the focus, a full code decompilation is part of this project, and I can't stress how cool it'd be to see an eventual source port of Mario Kart DS. This could be monumental in allowing less skilled people to finally make Mario Kart tracks of their dreams. And experienced modders will be able to make total conversions of this game and maybe even a true remaster or remake. Not to mention the potential quality of life mods like widescreen, single screen play, unlocked frame rates, split screen multiplayer, direct mouse input and hotkeys for the emblem editor, texture filtering options, better net play, high quality audio streaming, and just so much more. So go on now, click on that snaking tutorial and give Mario Kart DS another try, or maybe your first. Download some ROM hacks, maybe even make some of your own. This community is flowering, and now seems like just the right time to get into it. If speedrunning is your thing, there are some insane runs out there, and I encourage you to give them a try. If you're a casual, enjoy 50cc in mission mode. If you're a veteran Mario Kart player, maybe go back and give 150cc a try. I guarantee it's a lot harder than you think. One last note I'll add, Mario Kart DS, like many other games, is stuck on the DS. So if you feel uncomfortable playing with an unofficial emulator, Nintendo only re-released this game on the Wii U. If you don't have a Wii U and you want to understand a fraction of how fun snaking is, choose this kart combo with any baby class character. I chose Isabelle, of course, because I hate all the other baby class characters in this game. And just drift until the blue sparks appear and let it rip. Though fractionally similar, it's still a whole lot of fun to do. Alright, I'm done talking about the most legendary Mario Kart game now. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings. Peace and love as always. See you in the next one.